Whiskey for the Ages is not sponsored or endorsed for any product or program mentioned in this show and receive no remuneration from their creators.
Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome to all our Whiskey for the Ages podcast listeners. I'm your host, Brian Dawson, and tonight, Hannah's here.
Hello, guys. Hannah here. Big thanks to all of you tuning in for the first time as well.
And Laura's there.
Hi, guys.
Tonight, thought we would talk about how we go about reviewing whiskey, or how we go about exploring a new whiskey.
We certainly have a lot of products on our website, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know. Most of them are from the bourbon family, but there's a few sprinkles in from other whiskeys as well. And how we review those, I think, is probably a really important thing to talk about. That way you know where we're coming from whenever we open up a new bottle and try something for the first time.
And Hannah hit the nail right there. We don't review bottles that have been open for a while. Mm-hmm. We do a fresh crack and then start right from there. We're also going to talk about our whiskey aroma and flavor wheel. It's one of the tools that we use when we review bourbon.
And we talk about it pretty often here on this podcast, but going a little bit more into depth with it tonight. Again, I think it'll be really useful and might open up your own horizons as a sipper trying new things.
Or it might also help you figure out what certain flavors you're getting. Like, even if you're experienced as a drinker, it still helps to have it. For me, I like to narrow things down a lot. So before we get into all that nitty-gritty details, what's everybody drinking?
Tonight, I have poured myself some Old Forester 1910. It's a product that we've also talked quite a lot about here on the podcast. Last night, little bit of a spoiler here, Dad and I sat down and we reviewed the Old Forester 1924, the new baby.
I am salty about you reviewed it without me. Can you believe it, folks? My own family betrayed me. They know how much I love Old Forester. I'm so salty. I don't know how I blew past it.
The new baby did the Whiskey Row series. We opened that one up. I'm not going to go into what I think about that one. You'll have to stay tuned for the reviews once those get posted. But I wanted to open up 1910 for my own personal reference to do a little bit of a comparison tonight, which I'm probably not going to talk about too much. But, you know, behind the scenes, you'll know what I'm doing.
And I poured some Blade and Bow.
Totally different.
Absolutely. Some Blade and Bow. This is kind of a different whiskey. It's a Solero aged whiskey. We'll talk about Solero and we'll finishing whiskeys a little bit too. Laura, what did you pour?
I poured a simple old favorite of mine, Larceny 1870 single batch.
Yes. Now, if you guys go back to I believe our very first episode.
Yeah.
We did a quick review of the Larceny that Laura is drinking.
Yeah, that Larceny small batch, 92 proof, readily available in practically every liquor store, sits at around $30 USD. Just a solid pickup.
So if you want to hear what we thought about that, go look up podcast Series 1, Episode 1.
And we'll talk about it a little bit more tonight, too, I'm sure, with Laura's views.
So here's our topic tonight, assessing and rating whiskey, and then we'll talk about our flavor wheel. We've got a common denominator here. People like to rate things. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's race cars, maybe it's food, maybe it's restaurants, maybe it's whiskey. But everybody likes to rate something. We kind of watch the industry, maybe me more than anybody else, but I look at other people's opinions. What does somebody think about this? What does somebody think about that? By doing that, I've kind of come up with something that's a little bit confusing. There's little clarity in what people are doing.
Yeah.
What maybe Whiskey Advocate, the big magazine, does for a rating system, it's completely different than what we do.
And we should say that there's distinct, and I do really mean distinct, differences between how all three of us review and rate. There's a process we all go through that's very similar, but when we're coming up with our final conclusion, that final magic number, we're coming at it from completely different angles.
Very, very much so. I think, Dad, you really like your charts. You had the flavor wheel, and you'd have arrows.
Yeah.
All over it, like pink arrows.
Pink arrows, green arrows, blue arrows.
Yep. And
all the colors of the arrows that he is allowed to have.
Yep. And we'll get into that.
If there were more colors, I'm sure he'd have more.
Yeah, I've even got black arrows and circles and.
Yep. But we'll get into all of that.
We rate our whiskeys. And like Hannah says, we're all different in how we go about it. I mentioned Whiskey Advocate does it one way. We'll talk about some others. There's the Whiskey Jug out there. There's Breaking Bourbon out there. There's the You Take scoring method on Reddit. I mean, everybody has their own better mousetrap. We're no different. We're no different.
And we're no more correct or wrong or whatever. I think everybody's rating styles are valid, however they are.
That's absolutely right. And I think the reason for, well, the biggest reason for this podcast is so that you know what we do.
Yeah. So that when you read or listen to one of our reviews, you kind of know how those scores are coming into being. And that way, if you're in the store and you perchance look up one of our ratings on our website and you're trying to figure out what you want to buy, it might kind of help you figure that out beyond actually going through and reading everything that we write. I think it's just important. But anyway, we've pushed that one pretty hard here.
Yeah. So kind of the evolution of our website, Whiskey for the Ages, the blog, the podcast, and what have you. Our very first whiskey article that we wrote was the rating process. You can still find that on our SIP page, but we also do other things. Blanton's on Secondary was the last one that was written and posted. And then many others in between. Availability, ABC states versus open market.
My slow pour series where we kind of kick back, relax a little bit, and just have a contemplative session.
One of the articles on there that seems to get a lot of traction is what is a store pick?
That one does seem, y'all seem to be very interested in that one. And
maybe we'll talk about that coming up sometime. And then there's also infinity bottles and things like that. We've talked about a little bit about that. We had an episode where we did that as well.
But it's only Dad's and Hannah's articles for now. I do plan on writing some articles this upcoming summer. Stay tuned for that.
Yep.
It should be an interesting topic.
Yes.
Or topics. One of them will be my way of reviewing whiskey because only Dad's and Hannah's topics are on that. So
we'll just amend that article.
Yeah.
We'll just add your thoughts at the end of our article.
All right.
That works. So on our review page, Laura says that she doesn't have that many. That's okay. She's growing with it. But believe it or not, folks, we've got over 350 reviews.
A lot of them are overlapping, ones that both Dad and I have reviewed. A lot of them are ones that only one or the other has reviewed.
The whole idea is something that I might like, our listeners might not. Mm-hmm. Or something that Hannah and listeners like, I might not like.
Yeah.
So look at it from the perspective of how do you go about reading a review? It's really no different than a movie review.
Yeah.
Siskel and Ebert way back in the day. Somebody might like what Siskel liked and somebody else might like what Ebert liked. So that's kind of how we got started. You guys have heard us do reviews on our podcast. A lot of times we have very differing opinions. Mm-hmm. What I like or what Alora likes might be different than what Hannah likes.
Yeah.
Do I disagree a lot with Hannah or Dad? I can't remember. Like when it comes to flavors, like whenever we're doing a review, like I'll get something and either Hannah or Dad will be like, I do not get that at all.
I think that happens with both of us. You really go out on a limb with flavors that Dad and I just were not going to get.
Absolutely.
But
I think you might have a better palate.
Yeah,
I'm a picky eater.
Yeah,
I'm a picky eater.
Yeah.
No, that helps because you can discern things.
But let's get into it though. Dad, let's talk about your method. We call it the comparison scoring method in our blog.
Exactly. So when I say comparison, what I'm doing is I'm comparing whiskey A to whiskey B. Which is better, which is worse? Now, whiskey A and whiskey B do not necessarily have to taste the same or smell the same. For example, I might have one that I've given a rating of, let's say, 90. It might be, I don't know, Eagle Rare. I might have given something else a 90 as well, a Four Roses. Let's say a Four Roses small batch. The two are not the same at all. But on any given day, to me, that's what I would score them. So that's what I talk about when I say this, my scoring method. So how that all got started is I needed a way to compare whiskeys. So the first thing I did is I went to the internet. You know, what do we all do? We go to the internet and we start looking up what other people think about things. And I was actually pretty surprised years ago that on the internet, the most common whiskeys, the ones that you can find in the liquor store, very few people had reviewed them or even rated them. So it became pretty tough for me to find those particular whiskeys. Pretty soon I would find, okay, there would be Modern Thirst would say something about this, or the Whiskey Jug would say something about that. I started narrowing it down, and pretty soon I started hearing, oh, I can taste marzipan. Well, what the heck is marzipan? Or I can taste chocolate, or I can taste allspice, or whatever it is. I began to wonder what's wrong with me because I wasn't picking up any of those things. So then it became a tool that I would look at the other person's scoring methods and then I would say, well, what is this? Can I get it? And more often than not, I couldn't. You know, I was new at it. I didn't know what was going on. I started seeing some common trends, and one of the things people were doing is they were writing things down. So I started to write things down. I began using an app. The app doesn't exist anymore. It was from somebody called Whiskey Suggest. I believe Whiskey Suggest now has been purchased and is operated underneath the title Above, ABOV. I did look at that just the other day, and our whiskey reviews are still on that app. I was really pretty surprised.
Yeah.
They just transferred everything over. I haven't used that tool in...
Well, once we got the blog, there wasn't really as much of a need to post on the app what we were thinking about things when we had our own repository that we were making and building.
Exactly. From that, I began training my nose, training my palate. What could I smell? Was it wood? Was it fruit? What was it? And pretty soon I started to think, okay, I can get down... All right, there's some cherry there. So I started seeing certain things, and I got to confess, I like to cook. So pretty soon I was picking up more and more spices. And essentially what I was doing was I was trying things and training my nose at the same time, training my palate at the same time. Pretty soon I could get past those rudimentary flavors. say, baking spice or sweet, pretty soon I can say, oh, that's like brown sugar. Or maybe it's brown sugar with a little bit of cinnamon in it. So that's kind of how I went about comparing things. Now, if I had a rating of 90, maybe there's no brown sugar in something. But what was happening was I began to get a profile. I like bourbons that are sweet on the sugary side and have a lot of wood in them. So
and
I started,
you like the nutty ones,
and
too.
I like the ones with nuts.
I was about to say, yeah.
So
You're the nutty person
Yes.
of the group.
oh boy, I can do that. So pretty soon my library began to expand. My review format actually began to evolve. I started doing the diversity of flavors, the profiles, the proofs, the styles. And pretty much I found out that very often in each scoring group, they were very seldom similar. So that led to my comparison method. So we'll go into that a little bit deeper, but that's kind of how I went about it.
So as you develop your repository, you're adding more and more reviews. Do you ever think that the original reviews that you wrote when you had a limited exposure to bourbon at that time, that if you were to go back to those originals, if your rating of them would change because you didn't have as much to compare them to as you would now today?
I think so. I really think so. Early on, when you started reviewing whiskeys, I had quite a few.
Yeah.
And you were playing catch up.
In a lot of ways, I still am.
And-
but yeah.
Not as much as I am.
Yeah, Laura's like the real slow poke here, everybody.
But as you were doing it, I too was drinking that same whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was making amendments to my reviews, and for the most part, they stayed pretty consistent.
yeah.
One review that every time I look at it, I cannot believe that I reviewed and rated Weller Antique as low as I did. It's troubling to me. I think I rated it an 87. Yet I absolutely adore that bourbon.
That's one of the best products ever, hands down. I love that one.
And when I look at it today, the score bothers me. But then I look at the other ones that are in that tier. I tend to gravitate towards those in the same way. And I did write an article again on the website called something to the effect of revisit those old whiskeys
Yeah.
or those past whiskeys
Yeah.
because it's important to go back. You'll see things, or you'll bring out whiskeys that you drank many years ago that you'd completely forgotten about. That, hey, that's a pretty good whiskey or a pretty good bourbon. And it's good to go back and pick those up.
And maybe you just didn't have the expertise at that time when you first met it to actually appreciate what it was bringing to the table.
Yeah.
And now when you go back, you have the opportunity to come at it with a fuller experience and a bigger toolbox on how to understand that product.
Absolutely.
So
And on that experience note, perhaps when you did have it originally, you were experiencing something completely different. I mean, in the past podcasts that I've talked about, bourbon can taste different depending on who you're with, where you are.
yeah.
So experience is everything.
Yeah.
It affects your palate, it affects your aromas, your nose. I love my old Larceny. I love it for sentimental reasons. However, if I'm just having it, it's a good bourbon. It's certainly, one that I can go to for comfort. I consider it now a comfort bourbon if that's a thing. But because of the sentimental ties when we were in Wisconsin visiting family, it has to be one of my favorites. So, yeah.
And I think understanding that subjectivity is really important whenever you go into something. That's why when we review, we try to remove the subjectivity as much as possible. Me personally, I am all about objectivity when I am doing my reviews. So we call Dad's method like I said, that comparison method, that comparison scoring method, my particular method, we've called the grader method. A little background on that. I had some experience teaching at a university level for a time, so I was doing a lot of grading, a lot of lecturing, and a lot of assessment of understanding of students' of concepts and things like that. So numbers are really important when I grade. So there's a certain rubric that I've created specific to myself on what I'm expecting out of a bourbon, what would really blow my palate out of the water. I'm not always necessarily thinking of Dad's palate or Laura's palate. I'm thinking of my palate. We've talked a lot on here about the value conundrum. That's going to be an episode later on in this season that I'm going to be going into even more. But knowing the value of a product is really important, and it's extremely important in how I rate things. I want to know, first and foremost, is this even a product I would buy again? Not even going into, does it taste good? Just baseline, would I buy it again? So that price tag does have a big influence on what I rate things. Dad and I have gone back and forth on that a lot because he wants to rate things. He didn't mention this in his little section there, but he rates things purely as how the whiskey comes across, as if price does not exist. Is it good? How does it compare to other things he's had? That's the baseline.
Right, and I try really hard to keep the dollars and cents out of it.
And I'm all about keeping them in, because if I'm going to really, really love something, I want it to be something that I buy again, and I want it to meet the value that I bought it for. So I break things down. My base level is all about that would I buy it again. Automatic 75 points if I'm going to buy it again. Period. That doesn't break things down any further. I give a flat 75 minimum if I want to buy it again. From there, I break it down into certain flavor profiles. Again, this is based specifically on myself. I love really, really fruity whiskeys. So if the product is extremely fruity, it gets a higher score. It gets a score of 5. That's the highest I give that section. And then it goes down further all the way to 1, going from fruit to earthy. So that'd be like your grassy, your woody kind of elements. 3 would be a spice. A lot of Heaven Hills get 3s from me. They're very punchy in that spice category. Citrus gets a 2. I'm not as big as Dad and Alora are with the sweet, sugary essences. So anything that's super heavy on caramels or vanillas, unless it's paired with a fruit, I'm not all about it that much. From there, I go into balance. That's just a scale of 0 to 5, with 5 being absolutely fantastic. And we talked a little bit about balance and what I consider balance to be on the last episode, thinking back to that kind of oak tree-esque type thing and seeing how many branches from around the oak tree, around that flavor profile, can be represented. I give a rating specific on the warmth factor. I like bourbons that are very warming, not necessarily like alcohol burn your tongue off. I just like feeling the warming essence of a whiskey. I have a section for finish. I don't give as many points for finish as I do for ones like flavor and balance, but I do think that it's an important category. I love bourbons that have a long-lasting finish, that are still offering flavor even when they're gone. Complexity, I have a section for that as well. I like bourbons that have a lot of stuff going on in them, a lot of things that I can look past to find other things. I find those enjoyable. And then the last section I have is for the barrel. So that is really about how much that barrel has influenced the product. I like ones that have a lot of heavy oak in them. So that heavy oak and fruit combo, I'm all about those ones. I go through, and this is something that all of us do, and you've probably noticed it when we've done our reviews through the podcast. We sit down and we really think about the nose first, figure out what we're getting there, and kind of creating a little bit of an expectation of what we want to see come out of the palette itself. It's always nice when those things mirror each other. They don't have to mirror exactly, but it's nice when you can go into the palette and have it mirror that nose just a little bit. So we spend a lot of time there. Then we go into the finishing portion. I have a section in my reviews called the No More section, where I'm not only talking about what the empty Glencairn smells like. We do all of our reviews in Glencairns. But I also talk about how does this continue to taste as I go down the glass. Some things will change the more aeration time it gets, or the more it warms up to room temperature. And sometimes those things are great, or sometimes it just stays super consistent all the way down. I just want to let the whiskey speak. I don't go back to my setting. You guys know that's the thing that I do. I don't go back to my setting until I've done all of those things. I've assessed the worth the price section. That's a really big section for me in all of my reviews. I don't go back to the setting until I've done all of those things, but I'm thinking about the setting the entire time and just trying to let the whiskey exist as how it is, but still keeping that dollar sign in the back of my mind. So that's how I go about mine. Alora's the newbie to reviewing still. She's got her own method. We call that the mathematical method. So if y'all thought my thing with numbers was intense, Alora, what do you do?
Well, when you said grader method, I thought it was GREATER instead of like grading, as in like assignments. So I had a good chuckle at that.
Fair enough.
Clarified. My method is quite different. In terms of similarity to Dad and Hannah, I'd say it's more similar to Hannah, but I combine kind of what both of them do. Like Hannah, I have a rubric, and it's particular to categories. So, like Hannah said, we all start with aroma. Like Hannah and Dad have said, I really like the bourbons that are more on the sugary side of things. I like them to have a lot of caramel and a lot of brown sugar. But the thing that gets me to really, really love them is how well balanced they are. Hannah talked a little bit about balance, just as we all talked about balance in the last podcast. So if I consider a bourbon to be balanced, that means it has a substantial amount of wood, fruit, sugar, earth. Like, it's really well-rounded. There's all sorts of big categories on the flavor wheel that I can easily point everywhere and decide, oh yeah, I can smell that, or I can taste that. Yeah, I can taste grass in this. I can taste this, and I like being able to do that. Another thing I really like is the finish. If a finish lasts a really, really long time, that earns a lot of points. In regards to points, for me, aroma, I give it a maximum 20. Each of my categories have a maximum number, a maximum grade that they can get, and between 0 and that number is what I choose. If I can pick out a lot of different flavors, it'll easily be above 15. If I can't, I might put it more around 15 or 16. I don't think I've ever given a bourbon a lower aroma or anything like that. If I go on the website later on tonight and be like, oh, I actually did, I really hated this one, then I will bite back my words. Anyway, so that's aroma. Taste is a very, very big thing. So like Hannah and Dad do, so they consider aroma and taste very, very close together, like them, I expect what I'm smelling to be somewhat in the taste. I actually don't like it when the taste is something completely different, because I'm like, oh, well, you presented so many good aromas, now I'm getting none of them. I consider the aroma to be like the prerequisite to the taste. When they don't match, that's when I'm like, okay, no. But if they do, that's a really, really good, that means that it's really, really good. Taste is out of 25 points, simply because it's a very important category for me. I mean, that's why I'm buying the bourbon. That's why I'm buying the whiskey. That's why I'm taking my time out of my day to go to the liquor store and get it. So it earns the most amount of points. So again, 0 to 25. And again, balance has everything to do with it. If I can pick out a bunch of flavors, it'll be closer, like between 20 and 25. If not, then around 20 or lower. Again, same thing. I don't know if I've ever rated anything less than 20, but I know I've rated some stuff 20 points. And beyond that, finish, as I kind of was saying before, how I like a really long one. I like a finish that has a lot of flavors still going for at least a minute. And I give it that minute because I think of a finish and overall a bourbon like a firework. In Idaho, there's a firework that we get called a unicorn. It's a type of fountain, and it's supposed to have a lasting time of a minute and a half. So it's still keeping your excitement about it up for a minute and a half. So if a bourbon has a long finish, it means I'm able to discern flavors even after I've taken the sip for at least a minute. And it still feels very, very comfortable. I can feel it like, settling in my mouth, my stomach, whatever. Finish is worth 20 points. I do consider it a very important category. Again, that's another reason why I'm taking my time out of my day to get it and drink it. So yeah, those three are my biggest categories. The next ones, and they're more kind of central, feeling has its own grading system. Feeling is out of 5 points, so that means, is it creamy? Does it settle nicely in my stomach? Does it burn me? Whatever. That usually gets a very high point. Visuals is 5. I like a bourbon that has a thick crown and long legs. So the crown is essentially this thin outline that's closer to the top or where you poured. And as you continue to drink it, you'll see either a thin crown or a thick crown with like little tiny droplets. And then if you look closely at the glass, you might be able to see some striations where the liquid was touching. So for Larceny, what I'm seeing right now is a very thin crown with longer legs, and they're thicker legs as well. So I try to make all my scores equal 100 just to easily configure that, like when I add all my time. I think feeling was actually 10, now that I think about it. And then visual was 5.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, feeling.
And then, yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
So now
and
we're at 80. So now we got an extra 20 to pick up.
Yes. Thank you. So yes, the feel is 10 points, visuals 5, and then 20 is for the finish and the aroma, and taste is for
25.
25. Yes.
Right.
Now, the rest of the 20 points, this kind of ties into what Hannah was saying about price. So, worth the price is 10 points. Is it worth $30 to spend on Larceny? I'd say yes. Because it's a favorite. It's just a good comfort bourbon. However, if a whiskey is like over $70, it better be a really good bourbon or whiskey, because if not, then I'm going to be disappointed and likely not buy it again. Which ties into the next and final category. Would I buy it again? That is 10 points. So out of all of those points, I will add up all of the totals. Again, each category goes from 0 to said number. I'll add them up. And if I really, really like a bourbon, I guess I kind of round up I put like a little bit of a grading curve. Like, if I score something really low, but I really like it, I'll be like, 2 more points.
That's probably the more authentic grader method for rounding up and everything for those things.
I love grading curves. They're nice. I'm a terrible test taker. If I really like a bourbon, but I gave it a small score or a smaller score than I really wanted to, I'll be like, you get an extra 2 points for whatever reason.
See, that's
if I
where...
really like it, that's no grading curve.
Yeah. See, my subjectivity, if there is any subjectivity at all, is in that value section. Like I mentioned, 75 points flat if I'd buy it again, period. But I do have a breakdown of whether or not I'd maybe repurchase it, or if I think that it's a bad value, or if it's just average with no repurchase, or if it's just awful across the board. So that's where my fluctuation can come in, it's I don't think there's only been a couple where I haven't done either a maybe repurchase or a definite repurchase. So my scores tend to rank pretty high overall. You two are very you guys are very harsh graders with yours.
Yeah,
I have the highest
compared to you both. Like, Dad will, what's the highest that you've given?
I gave Ronnie's batch 95.
That's a Booker's product.
Yes.
I've given things a 97. So he's the harshest out of all of us.
My highest rating, I have to look here.
I think you're 97, 98. Somewhere
Yeah,
there.
I have 4 different whiskeys that I've gotten a 97.
So
that being said, I'm all over the place.
Yeah, you are.
About how you guys are grading. If I give something a low 80, it's probably because I felt so bad and gave it just a little bit of a grading curve, because originally it was closer to 70 or something like that.
Yeah. And that's why I do that.
Really, really hated it. Then I'm like, no, you deserve the crappy grade that you got.
and that's kind of why I do a comparison, because while the whiskeys I'm drinking are not the same as the other whiskeys, if I'm comparing them, I think they're on the same playing field. They're on the same level. Make sense?
Yep, I think so.
So we about exhausted the way we do things, but there's some other things too that I say that intricacies are important. So as our bunker began to expand, we began to realize distillers make a difference. Mm-hmm. Hannah touched on it. Heaven Hill, a little spicy.
Yeah.
We start talking about the Heaven Hill Funk or the Jim Beam Funk with the peanut notes.
Or Buffalo Trace Funk with a lot of fruit.
So we start gravitating to certain things. Information can hint to what one might expect. So one of the things that we do in all of our reviews is, maybe this is me digging deep, but I include a vital stats section on our reviews.
Yeah.
Now those
Yep, we all do.
The vital stats include what category they are. Maybe it's an American single malt, or maybe it's a
bottled and bond,
or whatever it might be. What region of the world is it coming from? Is it coming out of Kentucky? Is it coming out of Washington State? Is it coming from
out in Indiana?
Wherever. What distillery it might be. who's making it? Mash bill, one of the more important things that we want to know about. What barrel char the barrels have been set at. What the whiskey going into the barrel is put at. Does it have an age statement, or like most bourbons nowadays, no age statement at all? What proof is it? We're always talking about, is it hitting above its proof? Is it hitting below its proof? And then price, even though I don't necessarily subscribe to that, I think it's important to note what the price is, because what I bought something for today, somebody might look at that review and then wonder what's going on. Okay, that review came from 3 years ago. Yeah. And then lastly, batch, bottle identifiers, or finishing. I think those are all important. So like I mentioned, mash bill is one of the most telling things about a whiskey.
I go into every review really wanting to know what that mash bill is. Obviously, with whatever particular type of whiskey it is, there's going to be a dominant grain. If it's bourbon, there's going to be corn. If it's rye, it's going to be rye. Scotch is going to be barley, etc., etc. But that secondary grain, to me, is the most important grain of the whole product. If I'm having a bourbon, that secondary grain is either going to be rye or it's going to be wheat. And those two things are going to tip the bourbon one way or another, whether it's going to be soft, sweet, gentle, or whether it's going to have a little bit of punch to it. I really like knowing what that secondary grain is going to be and what the proportion of that secondary grain is, to know how much I want to see it represented on the nose, the palate, finish, etc.
And for me, it's actually quite different. I will include vital stats only because Dad and Hannah do. So I keep it for consistency reasons.
Fair enough.
I try actually not to really pay anything much mind, unless it's proof. Then I'm a little more sensitive to that. Of course, I'm going to have my favorites. Of course, I'm going to lean towards Old Forester. Still salty that you guys reviewed it without me. I don't think I'm ever going to let that go. I'll always gravitate towards Old Forester because they're consistently good, and that's just, what I know about Old Forester to me.
Sure.
I'm probably always going to like Larceny on that same note as well. But I don't know if you guys have noticed, whenever Dad and Hannah talk about certain types of whiskeys, they're able to pick off immediately which ones they're talking about within that category. I'm not. And it's not because I don't care enough to know. It's just I try to remain as unbiased as I can. So, yes, I acknowledge the vital stats. Yes, I acknowledge the mash bill. But as soon as I'm finished typing out the numbers, then I'm like, okay, it's whatever. Because I want the individual bourbon or whiskey to speak to me. I want to know that whiskey's story. I don't want to know any of the numbers until I have to deal with the numbers.
Fair enough.
I just try to look at it from a more minded set. I don't want to say closed mind or open-minded because, I don't know. I just want to take the whiskey as it is. Let it speak to me.
So like Hannah said, corn, let's talk bourbon. Corn, rye, malted barley. Okay, the corn's there to add sweetness. Mm-hmm. The rye's there, it'll add a little bit of spice. And then the barley is a stabilizer, and frankly, it helps the yeast growth. If that second grain is wheat, wheat typically adds a softness and a mellowness. Some distillers will use other grains. Believe it or not, some of them out there using rice. There's a rye wheat hybrid called Triticale. That's out there. It kind of gives a spicy softness, if there is such a thing, or a soft spiciness. I'm not sure which. If you have a rye, they're going to simply switch the first ingredient with the second ingredient. Rye's typically, the first ingredient will be rye. corn will be the second. Another factor, and it's seldom discussed, would be what yeast strains are used. They're all proprietary. There are only a few companies out there that will even say anything about their yeast. MGP is known to work with at least 5 different yeast strains.
And it's very possible that that yeast strain is actually the most important part of the mash bill. It's just those are the trade secrets that we don't get access to. And each yeast will interact with the grain in a different way. Some of them might produce a more tannin-ish quality like you'd get in a wine. So those might be more involved in your fruitier products. Some of them might give off more of a bread element, yeast being a rising agent for any baking product. So you'd get a bready element in your whiskey. So I think the yeast element is probably bigger than we would ever be capable of giving it credit for.
And it may be what gives the whiskey from the distiller the funk.
Yeah. Yep.
You know.
Yeah. I think so.
So then we talk about barrel char. Now, barrel char is kind of an interesting thing. The inside of a barrel is burnt. Okay? They range from a burning of a number 1 to a number 4. If you can think of an alligator skin, that would be a number 4 char. It's very rough, very open, very porous. So the idea behind that is a number 4 char is going to give more surface area on the inside of the barrel. It opens it up to where it adds complexity. The natural sugars in the wood are open to the distillate that goes in the barrel. It's part of the factors that we look at. A number 3 char is going to be a little softer. A number 4 char is going to have a little more wood element.
And this one would be one that I don't pay as much attention to. Sometimes I can link whatever I'm tasting back to the barrel char if something is very, very woody, but I've had plenty of bourbons, whiskeys that are supposedly a barrel char number 4 that just don't give that intense wood component. So I don't look at that one too harshly, whether the barrel char matches what I'm tasting. It's just whether or not I get barrel at all in the product.
Lower char levels, like say number 3, tend to produce more delicate flavors, more floral.
I like that you guys go into the science. For me, I mean, I like science. I liked learning about it. I didn't like taking it as a class, but that's pretty much school for me. But unless it's music, then I'm like, teach me everything. It shows how different we all take bourbons.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Yeah, you said that barrel char didn't really interest you. Dad still has to explain to me what barrel char is. The information, I mean, yeah, it's really, really interesting when you're talking about it. It's really interesting, and I love learning, but I can't for some reason, I can't let it sink in. So I'm always like, hey, Dad, what's barrel char? Or, hey, Dad, I'm getting the hang of what mash bill is because we've talked about it so many times in podcasts, but even then I'm like, no, what's that going to do, though?
Yeah.
I like the fact that you guys take a scientific approach where I'm just kind of like, I like whiskey, so, or I don't like this particular one. So, yeah,
Yep.
It just shows how subjective or objective our views are.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So then there's age and proof. Now, more and more whiskeys nowadays are not putting an age statement on, or if there is an age statement, it's kind of vague.
Yeah, or it's a very
Or
highly coveted.
It's 4 to 6 years old.
Yeah.
Or something of that nature. Whiskeys less than 4 years old must actually have an age statement on the label. If a bourbon or whiskey says a straight whiskey, it's at least 2 years old. If it says bottled in bond, it's at least 4 years old. Doesn't mean you can't have a 10-year-old bottle in bond. It just means that that's what it at least is. An absence of age statements in the older whiskeys, they're simply not required when it's past 4 years old.
And I don't look at no age statement whiskeys negatively at all. In fact, they get the biggest clean slate of them all. If I'm told what the age statement is, I do think there's an ideal range for certain whiskey types. Obviously, scotches have to be aged much longer. I don't think ryes need to be aged as much. If a bourbon goes over 12 years, I'm a little bit skeptical on how it's going to go, because at that point they can get drowned in oak and lose a lot of other flavors. So if the age statement's going to be there, I want it to actually match that age when I drink it. But if there is no age statement, then hey, you've got a free pass, free space on that bingo board.
Bourbon doesn't age like wine.
No, it does not. And likewise with the proof, that obviously is on every bottle that you pick up. I think proof is another thing that I look at and go, I'm expecting a certain hit out of this. There's so many products that sit within that 90 to 100 proof range. That's our biggest block on our whiskey by proof page on our website. But we've said before, Dad and I really like those higher proof offerings. So it's not that we will dislike something that's 95 proof. We come at it going, do you hit at 95, or do you taste hotter than 95 or weaker than 95?
And are the flavors there?
Yeah. We find that higher proof products tend to have a little bit more complexity to them. They get to open up a little bit more and have more balance, have more of the flavor wheel, flavor profile around. But all the same, it's not something that we dock. It's something that turns into a certain expectation for whatever it is.
And then lastly, on the labels, are there batch numbers? Now, a lot of whiskeys do not have a batch number. There are certain products out there that do. For example, a Larceny Barrel Proof will have a batch number. A124 would mean it came from January. It's the first month, the first release, and 24 means it's from 2024.
Or single barrel products, a lot of those you'll see specific batch numbers on those that are particular to whatever rickhouse it came from, whatever shelf or row that it came from, things like that. Booker's is very specific on where theirs come from, though they're a small batch. This one that Dad here is drinking, though, we're talking about batches, bottles, finishes. So Dad's here, that Blade and Bow.
Yes. So this one's an interesting one. It's a Solero aged bourbon. Now, Solero is a big fancy word, but essentially what it means is you have a stack of barrels. Think of a pyramid. You have a stack of barrels. The newest whiskey goes in the first barrel.
On top.
Yes, on top. The oldest whiskeys are on the bottom. So, if you are going to put new whiskey into the stack, what you do is you take whiskey out of the bottom barrels, blend it together, and bottle it. Now, you're not taking all of it. You're taking just some of it. Then the layer above that, you're taking whiskey out of those barrels and filling those bottom barrels.
So I like to think of the Soleros very much as an infinity barrel project where you're taking a little bit out and leaving some in and transitioning your next oldest into there.
Into the next level below.
So you always have a little piece of that original barrel, but it keeps getting blended with gradually newer and newer product. That's what this Blade and Bow is. Whatever special finish it is, whether it's a Solero or whether the bourbon's been finished in a port cask, like what or whether it's a rye that's been finished in a port cask, you see that with the Midwinter Night's Dram. it does impact what we expect out of it, but it doesn't immediately take a hit because we like special finish products. I probably like them a bit more than these guys do. I find them very innovative and fun, but I do have expectations if you tell me it's going to be a special finish of this or that.
One of the first special finishes that you started to see in bourbon was a toasted barrel.
Yeah.
So what was happening is they're doing all of the rules to follow the bourbon. It's new make, goes into a new barrel, barrel's it's charred, and then it comes out of that barrel and gets put into a totally new barrel that has a very light toasting to the inside of the barrel.
I think of it as a toasted marshmallow.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
I do take that into consideration whenever you guys put in the word toasted. Then I'm like, oh, okay. Then I'm going to expect a little bit of not burnt wood, but just toasted wood.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's self-explanatory. Like for the categories that I put in or that we put in for vital stats, usually I can get the definitions because they're self-explanatory. So yeah, I do treat it as, oh, well, it's toasted. So, well, it might, I hope that the whiskey has some of that because I do like toasted flavors.
Yeah.
I'll always, I mean, I can't count how many reviews I've given or I've written where I've said toasted marshmallow. Mm-hmm. I've given a lot of comments on that particular flavor or that particular aroma because I really, really love it.
So let's talk about our aroma traits and flavor wheel.
And this one is most specific to bourbon. You can apply it to any of the whiskeys out there, but it was made, spoilers, with bourbon in mind. We created this mostly for ourselves when we were novices and like Dad mentioned, we were reading all of these other reviews that these big names were doing and going, how the heck are you getting toasted caramelized almonds? What are you talking about? How are you getting Pop Rocks? Yep. What are you talking about?
Or lavender.
I mean, what?
I don't want lavender in my bourbon. I mean,
there's one where we've gotten that in. It's not great.
I'm just not going to
say. But so we wanted to create a wheel that we could work with. And you can find it. It's a free PDF on our site under our little tools section over there. At the bottom of your page if you're on your phone, off to the side if you're on your desktop, laptop, whatever. But when you look at it, the most central part of the wheel are the biggest flavor essences that you're going to get. So can you just identify if something is floral? If something has a blossom, a flower element? Can you tell if something is just fruit? You don't have to specify further, but just know, is it fruit? Can you get any wood? Or think at all about what the mouthfeel may be? Those are the really central tenets. And if you can pick those, okay, awesome. Now you can look at any of those and branch out further to go, all right, well, you got fruit. Is it a red fruit? Is it a berry? Can you specify further down what berry? Could it be a blackberry, a raspberry? We've never gotten strawberry. That'd be fun, though.
How about stone fruit?
Stone fruit. So could it be peaches? Could it be plums? Plums are very common.
Yeah, apricots.
Or apricots.
Yeah.
I say apricots.
Is it a dried fruit? So are you getting like a fruit leather? Or maybe a raisin or a currant? And you can break that down into any of those. Like with the baking, can you break it all the way down to a yellow sponge?
From a cake.
from a cake, you know, and work all the way down. So this is a tool that we use. Dad uses it the most out of the three of us for sure.
Every one of my reviews that I write on the website, you can go to the bottom of the review and there's my wheel with the circles and arrows and, you know, paragraphs of destruction.
Yeah. Yeah. When these two review, they go really, really deep onto those extreme details. Alora just miraculously pulls them out, you know, as they exist. Dad has to hunt for them a little bit. My reviews, you'll notice, are a little bit more generalized. I like looking at the wheel and going, yep, I get that, and that, and that. I like looking for the highlights. I don't dig necessarily for something super, super deep, mostly because when I drink something casually, I'm not drinking for the tiny, tiny, minute flavors that I have to dig for. I'm having it just to have it. So I want to know my highlight reel right off the get-go. That's what my reviews mostly contain.
So, for example, under spice, you know, what spices are we getting? Well, on the wheel.
For me, I get a lot of sweeter spices. I think when I was first reviewing, I think I used the wheel just to see, like, oh, well, this will help generalize. But then I would find, again, the extremes. I would find the extremes that just weren't on the flavor wheel, so I kind of stopped using it. For spices, I like getting a lot of the sweeter ones. Like, I like getting nutmeg. I like getting cloves, allspice, ginger, all that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then vanillas, you know, is the vanilla rich?
Yeah.
Or is it more like a custard?
Yeah. I mean, there is a difference. I mean, if you get vanilla extract and you're using it in baking, that smell is an extremely powerful, delicious smell, but it's not the same as vanilla bean ice cream.
Exactly.
So can you specify your vanilla?
Or toffee. I love toffee. If you ever have the chance to purchase a Heath bar and a Score bar.
Not sponsored.
Buy them both and then taste them. One is buttery and one is more bitter. I won't tell you which because you got to have your own palate. But there is a definite difference. And here's the weird thing. They're both made by Hershey's. Yet they have two different flavors. So that's how we use our flavor wheel. It's pretty extensive. I don't remember how many traits are on the outer portion. 150 odd, 160. Whatever it is.
And it doesn't even have to be broken down into a specific flavor necessarily. It can be broken down into the character or the mouthfeel or the sensation. Alora mentioned that that's a really big thing when she does her ratings. And so knowing whether a product is creamier or oilier or has a bunch of heat to it, those are important. So keep all of that in mind. Go look at the wheel yourself. I don't think that it's specific to novices or experts, or I think you can use it at whatever stage you're at in your whiskey journey. I think that it's a fun way to challenge yourself to figure out what else you can get and what else can improve your enjoyment in your whiskey. That's what we all want, right? Yep. So go ahead and give that a try.
Yeah, I agree with that. When I review, or even when I'm having bourbon or whiskey, like just casually, it's the only kind of scavenger hunt I like. It's kind of like, what can I find? Like, can I find those pop rocks? I like narrowing things down because it's my own personal challenge. Like, how much further can I narrow it down? Because I always want to say, like, all right, well, what kind of cherry is this? What kind of vanilla is this? Am I getting French vanilla versus vanilla bean? I'll go into those types of details because those two have a different taste.
Absolutely.
I'll go into those really, really minute details just as a challenge. And sometimes I'll be like, all right, I need the flavor wheel to get to this one thing, and then I'll be able to be like, oh, okay, now I get it. So make it a game. Honestly, just make it a game. If you're reviewing a whiskey, see what kinds of things you can find, because it's fun to challenge yourself in that way.
Here's what we've learned. You're not wrong.
You've heard that there are now, like, aside from the three of us, dozens of ways that people do this. This is just our way of doing it. Whatever you're smelling, whatever you're tasting, that's unique to you. Your taste buds are and your nose sensors, they're all valid. No one should be telling you what you're getting out of something. That's why I don't look at other people's reviews, because that's what they're finding. I may not find the same thing. So you're not wrong.
Now wait. Maybe you're a little wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
How?
Maybe your tasting methods need refining. In other words, don't go into reviews after you've gone out for spicy Mexican food. Your palate gets blown out.
Yeah.
Okay? Or maybe you should invest in some nice glassware. So,
we have a SIP article about the importance of glassware. Highly, that one was written by me. Check that one out.
we review using Glencairns. Now, what a Glencairn is, if you think of a tulip, that's kind of what they are. They have a small opening at the top and a big bulb for the liquid down underneath. It keeps all the aromas and flavors in the bowl.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're going to go into a review and you've got a great big open tumbler, you're probably going to lose some flavors. So,
in theory.
Yes.
In theory. It's all subjective, though.
yeah. Next step, find some good tasting partners. The girls and I enjoy reviewing together.
That being said, we don't talk.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We don't talk. We go through. I mean, we
don't want to give anything away. We don't want to influence each other's own flavors. Like, I can't say, "Ooh, I'm getting pettygrams out of this," because that'll completely blow everyone's perception off.
Yeah.
Like, we try to keep it as individual as possible. But yeah, I mean, maybe it all comes down to all three of us being very much so introverts, but we also just don't want to influence any flavors or aromas going awry. We'll say at the most, "This is interesting,"
Mm-hmm.
or "I like this."
Or if
But even then, we're careful with "I like this," because again, we know each other's flavor profiles so well. So Dad says, "Ooh, I like this." Then it's like, it's nutty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Hannah likes it. Oh no, it's fruity.
Now, that being said, when we are doing our podcast reviews all together, you guys obviously can't see us as we're doing those reviews, but we're all writing things down as one or the other of us are talking. So we're thinking a bit quicker on our feet. When I do my reviews, I'm writing out those narrations, that narrative, as I'm drinking it. There's no editing for me. I type what I get. I post the end. So I especially have to be, bullet pointing everything. So we do make sure that we're independent while we're doing those podcast reviews. But obviously, there is conversation happening there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when we're doing a review on the podcast, we're careful not to jump ahead.
Yeah.
We get to a level, we're nosing, we say what our aroma traits are. And then we taste it.
Yep. You'll hear one of us go, "Okay, I'm going in for the first taste." Like that's you'll find that on every single one of them, no doubt.
Yeah.
That, all right, now I'm going in. So
And she's off.
And then the next thing we learned is someone's always going to be better than you. Both
Alora.
both girls are better at this than I am.
But women more sensitive taste buds. That's just biology.
It's biology.
We win in that regard.
And then I'm getting older and I'm losing some of that too. So, no one will ever be the best whiskey reviewer ever. And
honestly, don't try to be.
No.
Like, don't try to be the best reviewer ever. Don't try to be like, oh, I get a hint of sherry or something like that.
Yeah.
No. Like, if you get sherry or whatever,
write it down.
fine. That's just you. Or it could be everyone else. I mean, this is all, I don't want to steal one of Bob Ross's quotes, but this is your world. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, when I was talking about my method, whatever my rating is, it's for me. I'm not thinking about Dad's palate. I'm not thinking about Alora's palate. To be honest, listener, I'm not even thinking about your palate. I'm thinking about my palate. This is what I like. This is what I'm expecting out of this product. Would I buy it again? Yes or no? Why?
There you go.
So I'm thinking about it from me. If you ever rate any products for yourself, whether it's to remember the next time you go in the store, I don't like that, or, oh, I love that, you should be doing that for you and your palate and your tasting journey. Okay?
don't be a people pleaser.
Don't be a people pleaser.
Absolutely. Now, sometimes you go into a review, you taste things, and things are just weird. Be prepared to take a calibration sip from something you know. Now, for me, you guys are all going to think I'm crazy, but it's Evan Williams Bottled in Bond. It's an $18 bottle, screw cap. But guess what? I know it. Every time I have it, I get the same flavors. It keeps me grounded, and frankly, it's not a bad bourbon. I'll take a sip of that, and it calibrates my mouth. It calibrates my nose. Sometimes you just got to take a calibration sip.
I mean, even what I'm doing right now with 1910 is an effort to understand 1924 a little bit better. My calibration's a little bit late because we did the review last night for 24. But the reason why I grabbed 1910 tonight was because I wanted to know how it would stack up against 1924.
And for Alora, I would almost say that Larceny, I mean, that's kind of your calibration bourbon, that you go to that one more often than not.
Yeah, it's a comfort bourbon. That sounds pretty bad, but
well, it's just something that you know what you're gonna get.
It's consistent.
Like,
it's always going to be a staple in my bunker because, I mean, going back to the whole proof thing, Hannah and Dad like higher proofs. I like them if they don't hurt me, if they don't burn my mouth, if they don't burn the insides of my chest cavity or my stomach. And they also have to have more than just proof. I don't like bourbons or whiskeys that speak of 118 proof or 115 proof and be like, I'm going to kick your ass. And I'm like, I didn't ask for this.
Yeah. And fair enough.
We had a string of bourbons. I can't remember what they were, but all of them, just days of this, 3-4 days of just high proof. And I'm like, I need a break from bourbon. I can't do bourbon. It's hurting me too much.
Yeah, that was a couple years ago when we did 30 bourbons in 30 days.
That's a tough series every year. I think, it would have been a part of that. My bet is that it would have either been Elijah Craig's barrel proofs or potentially Booker's.
I do remember it starting with a D.
Yeah.
I do remember starting.
Yeah.
It's probably Elijah's.
That was it. Yeah.
But
and I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah. But the bottom line of all of this, though, take what all of us are saying with a grain of salt, but now you know when you read our reviews or listen to our podcast reviews where we're coming from when we pull out these numbers seemingly from nowhere. You know how they do show up. But the most important thing when you're reviewing yourself, if you ever dabble in that, or whenever you're trying anything new for the fun of it, you have to enjoy the journey, okay? You have to make it about having fun. There are so many different directions that whiskey can go, not just from all of the different categories and classifications. Even within those niches, it can spread out insanely with many different avenues and vessels. You just have to figure out which one you want to go down and explore a little bit more. So keep that in mind. Have fun with it, okay? Have fun with it.
So that was great. But let's move on to our news segment, This Fortnight in Whiskey. I've got 3 short stories here tonight. First one, Buffalo Trace is doubling their bourbon production. What that means for Pappy, Weller, and more. The bourbon boom of the past several years has made our favorite bottles hard to find.
I remember when I could buy E.H. Taylor, not just small batch, but single barrel proof off of the shelf, because they were literally on the shelf, not behind any register or on any fancy table. They had a sticker on a shelf, and I could find them whenever I wanted. I miss those days.
And that wasn't that long ago.
Feels like a long time ago.
But now many of these bottles come out of Buffalo Trace Distillery. You know, I mentioned Blanton's, Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare, E.H. Taylor, like Hannah says, Weller, and of course, Pappy Van Winkle. But this could soon change. Now, soon is somewhat of a relative term. So how is Buffalo Trace doubling their whiskey production? Well, back 9 years ago, 2015, the distillery began a $1.2 billion expansion. By the end of 2022, they had increased their production by 50%. In February of last year, just a little over a year ago, the brand opened a new still house, which can produce 60,000 gallons of whiskey a day. Buffalo Trace's press release at the time stated, this will allow the production to double on Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare, Weller, Blanton's, and E.H. Taylor. And, in quotes, the rest of the whiskey portfolio.
Now, I can't help but wonder, like, that's a great story, but I can't help but wonder if they would go, let's keep our regular numbers for Weller Antique, 107, whatever. Let's keep our regular numbers and let's create a new Weller with that surplus. And so there's no more difference in Weller Antique, but we have a new Weller on the market.
Maybe.
That's kind of what, I don't know. That's kind of what I feel like could happen.
It's possible. Well, the distillery's new still duplicates their existing still. So that's where they're getting double numbers. And right now, Buffalo Trace is producing at all-time levels. But there's more to expansion than just the still house. Buffalo Trace is building a new boiler house featuring 2 new steam boilers and 8 95,000-gallon fermenters. What this means is they're going to be producing a lot more product. The new construction, yes, the new construction also includes a distribution center, a bottling operation, a new drying house for the grains, a new mill house, 4 new cookers, process cooling systems, wastewater treatment facility, expanded visitor center, an upgraded cistern room, basically where they're holding the water, with 375,000-gallon cistern tanks and 19 new aging warehouses that are all currently aging 58,000, almost 59,000 barrels of whiskey.
Do we know where the general area of these locations are?
They're around their own distillery. Now, will Pappy Van Winkle be easier to find? Well, in the press release, Pappy Van Winkle was noticeably absent. But from their statement, the rest of the whiskey portfolio, some people did some digging, and finally Buffalo Trace has since confirmed that they too will be expanding. It will be at least a decade before we see any increases here on the store shelves, though.
Because of aging.
Exactly. The youngest Van Winkle is 10 years old. In 9 years, 10 months, we might see some more old Rip Van Winkle. But there's some 23-year-old product out there as well. The oldest of the Pappy Van Winkle, that's going to be
a while yet.
Decades before we see it.
Yeah.
That's going to be an expensive one.
Always is.
Next, this one's kind of a sobering, and I kind of say that tongue-in-cheek. America's drunk driving limit may be changing. On March 5th, here just a month ago, a bill in Hawaii State Senate passed lowering the legal blood alcohol limit from 0.08 to 0.05. This follows a similar bill in Washington State, which is currently in committee. Now, Utah adopted this lower limit back in 2018. Every other state has a blood alcohol level that cannot exceed 0.08 when tested. The proponents say the lower limit is in place in many European countries. It would prevent more drunk driving related deaths. Year 2000 study said drivers with blood alcohol levels between 0.05 and 0.079 are 7 times more likely to be killed in a crash than if they hadn't been drinking at all.
That would probably be due to people assuming that they're just feeling a buzz and making the assumption that they're okay to drive, when it's very well documented and very well known that no, you should not be driving at that level. If you feel a buzz, you're not good to go.
Buzz
period.
Drinking is drunk driving.
Yeah, it's period.
Yep.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep. Now, the detractors say it will create an additional burden for law enforcement and could lead to responsible drinkers being penalized. In other words, somebody like me who's a little overweight, I can have 2 or 3 drinks and still be under the 0.08.
Now, I would argue, so when you get pulled over, and I don't mean you, Dad, I mean when one gets pulled over, it's because of a certain action that you've done on the road. They're not looking for you to be drunk. They're going, did you run a stoplight? Are you speeding? Whatever the case is. So for the people who have, how do I word it politically correct? For people who have a higher tolerance, they're not going to show drunk driving indicators when they're driving. So they're not going to get pulled over. But there are some people who have very limited alcohol intake capabilities before they start showing signs that they're inebriated.
Exactly.
So this would just make it so you can catch them and hold those people accountable, even if they don't meet the physiological standard of the 0.08. I think it's a good thing.
I do too.
I don't think it's going to impact law enforcement job duties at all.
Yep. Utah.
Honestly, if it is a burden for law enforcement,
Oh well.
then it's a good burden.
Yeah. Oh, well.
It's a good burden.
Yeah.
Seriously. Because, I mean, they'll also, I mean, if they are looking for drunk drivers, they're looking for, like, swerving in the roads or not being able to stay in the lane or whatever. Like, those are really, really obvious. But, I mean, on that same note, they're also looking for similar signs as when you're texting and driving.
Exactly.
So, like, I mean, if the law enforcement is honestly pissed off about it, I'm like, well, that really sucks for you. But, I mean, it would prevent more
Yeah.
shit from happening.
Yeah. You're here to
Car
keep.
accidents is not fun.
Yeah. You're,
We've
you
all
know.
been there. We've all been there.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yep.
So,
So Hawaii's Senate bill is been handed back to the Transportation Committee. Washington is in a similar position. The outcomes of these two bills will influence wider adoption of the lower limit.
I'm going to keep my fingers crossed
Yep.
for it.
There's movement to the .05 in other states as well. New York and Connecticut are looking at this.
Good.
okay.
And my third story, 3 quick bottles to search for. I know, Laura, you said you don't like scavenger hunt, but here's our scavenger hunt. Michter's releases a new batch of 10-year-old bourbon. It's been a couple years since they've released that batch. 2024, the 10-year-old bottle is said to have an excellent nose. They're not giving any details. Creamy texture, an array of characteristics on the palate, which pass through to the finish.
Suppose if I have to go, I will go and search for it.
I like
right.
Michter. I like Michter's products.
Now,
That
this
one should
one's
be
a
fun to
little
find.
spendy, though, at $185.
Well, maybe I don't like it that much.
Yeah,
We'll
and
see.
at
That's a
47.2.
Christmas present.
Yeah. there you-
Yeah.
All right, I got Laura's list done. Jack Daniels launches a bonded rye.
On my Christmas wish list. I'm sorry.
Jack Daniels announces or launches a bonded rye. Brown-Forman owned Jack Daniels has released its third bonded expression. It's the first rye from the Tennessee distillery to feature a bottled in bond designation.
They're starting to come out with a lot of interesting things. Last
Yes.
time I was at the liquor store, I was shown a bottle of Jack Daniels collaboration with McLaren.
Really?
McLaren.
Ooh.
McLaren, everybody. I mean,
Wow.
for those of you who don't know, McLaren is a high-end supercar comparable to Ferrari, Lamborghini, that level. They're a Formula One racing team. The bottle has like the McLaren orange stripes and everything around it. I probably should have grabbed it. I love McLarens, but you know, it's pipe dream of mine.
The mash bill, 70% rye, 18% corn, 12% malt barley. And distiller notes say the whiskey starts with sweet dried fruit, then follows with hints of toffee and caramel, and sports a bold, complex, balanced taste.
Blah 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 blah. If I ever have it, I'll know it.
Yep.
I'll figure it out.
And quite a bit more affordable, probably slightly more than $50.
Good old Jack.
And then lastly, Templeton debuts its inaugural bourbon. The rye maker Templeton has released Fortitude Bourbon. It's the first whiskey to come entirely from its Iowa distillery. The mash bill, 55% corn, 40% rye,
Holy crap. Okay.
and 5% malt barley. So it's still going to be spicy.
But is it going to have any artificial coloring in it? Because that's something that
Templeton
Templeton.
has been accused of in the past, yes.
Oh.
I don't think so.
If it's a bourbon, it can't be.
That's
there
true.
can't be any artificial coloring
true.
in it. That would make it not a bourbon.
46% ABV or 92 proof. It's made from locally sourced corn from farms within 15 miles of the distillery. And distiller notes indicate aromas of floral and grassy notes with spice, black pepper, sweet vanilla, and lemon peels, flavor of rye, spice, butterscotch, and citrus, and a finish of caramel popcorn
Okay.
with spicy oak notes.
How do you marry caramel popcorn and lemon peels? I don't know.
I don't
but
know.
I'm intrigued all the same.
I worked at a store. There were some questionable popcorn flavors that I saw, so it doesn't really surprise me.
The 750 milliliter bottle here is priced the most economical of the bunch at $40.
That's pretty typical for a Templeton product. You know, they're not that pricey. As always, these links to these stories and other whiskey news, you can find those on our podcast archive page. That's just whiskeyfortheages.com. Go out there and find yourself some new bottles. Enjoy that scavenger hunt. So that is our show. Rating whiskey. For any of those of you who sit down and review for yourselves or even for other people, how do you do it? You know, what are we doing wrong? We're very interested to hear all of that.
Send us some feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a rating process that you love the most between the three of us? I'm not hunting for compliments.
Pick me.
But
I don't understand if you don't want to go by my number system, as I listed a bunch of numbers.
I actually
But
really like
I do
Alora's.
I do admit it's really, really easy to come up with a percentage. So
We all like to add up to 100 in some way, shape, or form. So let's go into what we've got here for the rest of the season. Next episode, my show, is going to be the Whiskey Value Conundrum. Very excited about that. I talk about it every single episode. Y'all should know about it already, but we're going to go into it a little bit further because we can, okay? After that, we're going to go into our Proof Spotlight series. We're going to do a bracket of 90 to 99 proof offerings.
As Hannah said, that's one of our biggest categories.
Yeah.
So we're going to expose some more bourbons in that range. Maybe we'll talk about, is it punching at its weight?
Yeah.
Or is it punching below?
or is
Yeah.
it, or
Kim-
above.
Yeah, can bring in some rise in that category too, for sure. Episode 5, we mentioned this in our first episode this season, we're going to be bringing in a third review this time around. Episode 5 is going to be that second review of the season. It's not going to be a bourbon, though. Not going to tell you what it is yet, but it won't be a bourbon. Episode 6, we're going to be having a guest interview. On that note, little side note, rather, Dad's going to be on another podcast.
The Greg Walters Show. I was on that quite some time ago, a couple years ago. And then the girls and I were on Greg's show. What was it, last spring?
Something like that. And Greg has been on our show before. He's a super fun guy to talk to. Definitely be on the lookout for that. We'll be posting those links as they come up. Episode 7, we're going to be coming back in with another one of my shows. I'm very excited. We're going to be doing another distillery review. This is part of that Spotlight series. So first bit is for proof. Second bit is for distillery. I've got some ideas for what that distillery is going to be, but mum's the word so far. Episode 8, we're going to be doing an expose. We're going to be discussing topics and challenges that we, as whiskey aficionados, as we like to call ourselves, that we face as we do reviews, as we hunt for whiskeys, whatever. A lot of things to talk about there.
Stupid people in the liquor store that aren't employees.
As an ex-employee, I've got many a story.
I've actually got some stories.
Everybody has some stories, though, Laura. Everybody.
But it's even more like, because I don't really go into it.
Episode 9, we're going to be going into another whiskey history. We have to have one of those. My dad, the history buff, loves to be able to talk about that. And then, as always, for our season finale, we're going to be doing another review. That'll be our listeners' pick, so be on the lookout soon for those options of things that we can review. Those are going to be more of our unicorn varieties that we're going to be pulling out of the bunker and letting you guys choose what we open up for the first time and review on the podcast.
Now, we may mix this order up a little bit, but that's kind of what we have in line. We're going to have a lot of fun. That's number 1. We're going to add some surprises. And most of all, it's all for you guys, our loyal listeners.
Absolutely. So thank you guys so much. We look forward to talking with you all again soon with my value conundrum and diving into that a little bit more. But as always, at the end of our show, I've got a little jelly jar here, so our ringing of the Glencairn isn't going to be as profound, but we'll give it the best go
And
we
I've
can.
got the Glencairn, so we'll see if we can make her ring. All right, everybody.
I've got a fork and a glass.
Fork in a glass. We're
right.
ready to go.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.